You are listening to We Are the Compassionate Revolution. I'm your podcast host, therapist, author, boundaries guide, Molly Moon. If you are a compassionate person and you want to know your worth, set better boundaries, live from your truth, and operate in your fullness, then I am so glad you've joined us. You ready? Let's get started. I'm so happy to welcome today Dr. Ingrid Clayton, who's now getting famous.
I don't know about that. But...
Yeah, no, I just peeked at what's happening with your book.
Oh.
And it's incredible. So anyways.
Wow.
Many of my listeners probably already know because they probably already ordered your book. But Ingrid is a clinical psychologist, trauma therapist, author, a complex trauma survivor herself. And I'm pretty sure I first found you just as fellow social media people. And I remember you posting stuff where I'm like, yes, that, no more pathologizing compassionate people.
Oh.
So anyways, I'm just so happy to have you here.
Totally. And I'm a complete fangirl over here. I don't know, maybe I found you first because your work is so creative and right on and digestible. And I don't know, your sense of humor, just all of it. It's just the perfect packages of digestible information. And so I've long admired you. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And thanks for, reading the book and having me on.
That also is something I love about you. You have such a sense of humor. And you guys, if you have not checked this out on Ingrid's social media page on Instagram, there are some of the funniest videos that you've made just playing with all of this stuff that has done us so much harm and adding some levity, adding some playfulness, adding some creativity, which, as you know, helps the brain start thinking about things in a new way.
Totally. The levity piece is so important, but sometimes I worry it's a bit of a bait and switch because not all my videos are funny, right? Sometimes I'm like in it and it's very contemplative. But I feel like if I, first of all, can laugh at some of this stuff, oh my God, what a gift. And then if it does genuinely make me laugh, I go, it's not even up to me. I have to share it. It's like, I need to let other people in on the joke, right? So that we can all feel a little bit more free. And that's a super fun part of, I think, what we get to do on social media.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk about that later. There's toxic positivity. There's spiritual bypassing. That's different. But there is a place, I think, for just, oh my gosh, we're going to laugh or cry. What are we going to do? Cry all the time? Let's laugh too.
Yeah.
If it didn't do so much harm, there could be more laughter. It actually does real harm, which is the problem. But when you step back from it, it's ridiculous.
And laughing, I think, lets you see the harm and the reality. It's not about bypassing it, right? Or sort of wrapping it up in a bow, even though you're laughing. It's legitimately about greater connection and insight. And I think that's the key difference.
Yeah. Would you start us out today? And I know you wrote a memoir. When I first met you, you might have been writing it for that coming out. And now we're going to be talking about your new book, Fawning, today. But would you give the listeners a bit of background about you, both professionally, but also personally?
Yeah. So, today, as I sit here, I'm a 51-year-old trauma therapist, clinical psychologist, mom, all these things. But the reality is I've spent the previous decades, whether it was professionally or personally, really trying to crawl out from under something I could never put my finger on or really understand. And no one else helped me to do that, whether it was grad school or sitting on a million therapist couches or getting sober and going to the programs and the retreats and the workshops and the books. It's like I have been so hungry to find what felt like a missing puzzle piece to make me feel like I made sense to myself, like I wasn't broken, that I had a sense of agency and all of these things. And so the short version of that is well into my private practice and my trainings, even in trauma and working in relational trauma, in particular complex trauma. My stepdad died, and it dropped me into what felt like the safest experience on the earth that I had maybe ever felt. That his absence, and he is the one who was sort of my primary abuser, I guess you would say, source of my complex trauma. And in his absence on the earth, it was like I was able to reclaim pieces of me that had felt I didn't even know that they were missing. And what that looked like was this true calling to write down these memories that came for me so hard and so fast. They came every day. They came in the middle of the night. They woke me up repeatedly. My husband is like, "What is going on?" At the end of each day, in between having a toddler and seeing clients, I would show him pages and pages, single spaced, and they were really coherent writings. Like he's like, "How are you doing this? What is happening?" And I said, "I don't know. God, it makes me emotional to go back, but I know it's the most important thing I've ever done. I could just feel it." And this kept going for years. And because I had published a book based on my dissertation on spiritual bypass, I mean, it was all the way back in 2011, right? But it was research from basically '08. That just felt like a million years ago. But there was a sense of like, oh, this feels like a book. And so I'm also someone who knows how to go to grad school and show up and like do the next thing. And so I started querying agents. I queried over 100 agents. I thought, yes, this feels important. I know it's for me, but my sense is it's like for other people too. And I just heard a million no's, right? So then, as a complex trauma survivor, I was shaking my fist at the universe, like, why are you having me do this and like continue to knock on doors when they're clearly not opening? I just felt like this is demoralizing. It feels horrible. Is this just me dragging myself through the mud one more time? But ultimately, what it led to was growing this community on social media and me finally saying, God, I haven't been emotional about this stuff for a while, but maybe it's our like depth of knowing each other this long and going back to the beginning.
I've got chills all over my whole body, so just keep talking.
Yeah, me too. I came to this place where I said, I'm not going to wait for anyone else to give me permission
Oh my goodness.
or to validate that this is meaningful. And even if it's only meaningful to me, it's worth it. And so I went from being a person who said, like, with my finger in my throat, like gagging, like, I would never self publish. And a memoir on childhood trauma, I was like, oh my God, to going, I am self publishing my memoir on healing from complex trauma. And it truly changed my life. Not just through the sense of community first online, but then through reading my story. So many of us who have complex trauma, we feel so isolated and alone and different. And like your story is more legitimate than my story. And my story maybe wasn't that bad, right? This like gaslighting that we've received and now we're doing to ourselves over and over and over. And so to have like thousands of people start to read my memoir and send me these emails and say, you're telling my story. And I mean, not just the general sense of it, but the specificity, it just blew me away, right? I was like, oh my God, how many are there of us walking around with these same experiences that have been so cast aside? In part because they were about emotional abuse. And emotional, is that really abuse at all? Like if
Yeah,
there's no
bruises.
bruises or evidence,
Exactly.
right? Which I had also been told in my childhood. We're gaslit to say you're just being so sensitive and you're overreacting. And so a lot of these things, I was groomed. I wasn't sexually assaulted, but I was being groomed pretty hardcore by a man who I now know has a history of such things. And so it kind of made all of my experiences real by putting them on the page, right? And then in doing so, I had enough distance from not only my childhood, but all the ways I reenacted it. I had enough distance to see it through a trauma therapist's eyes. And so I could finally say that's what this is. This is complex PTSD. I have complex trauma. This is reenactment. And in the writing, I became introduced to Pete Walker's work. I hadn't heard of him before, complex trauma survivor himself. And he coined the fawn response in a trauma response, lens and fawning. And I was like, this is it. This is my life in one sentence. And it was the missing piece, in addition to grooming and narcissistic abuse and complex trauma. But fawning, really, in terms of like the thing that then I carried with me into the world as this shield, the sense of safety. I didn't even know it, but it was also the thing keeping me stuck. It was such a major thread, right? One of the main reasons why I went missing in my own life, went missing in my relationships, and I couldn't figure out why. All the other discourse on codependency and people pleasing, some of these things, I felt like they were so like consciously, rationally driven. I have come to find that I'm a fairly smart person, right? Like I didn't think that I was growing up, but I'm like, okay, I now have these degrees. I can sort of cobble a thought process together. And this all makes sense to me. Rationally, I know I'd love to set boundaries and, grow my self-esteem or whatever it was, not care what people think about me, whatever the, platitudes were. But they did not feel available to me. These behaviors were not available to me, quite frankly. Either they elicited too much terror in my body, which is also what lets us know that the trauma response is in the driver's seat, or the double bind that I was in of the actual consequences that I would receive if I did sort of quote unquote take care of myself were so great that I was like, well, good for you people that have the privilege of getting to just have a voice and set these healthy boundaries and have it respected. But that is not my personal experience. And so again, it was just this way into understanding myself and then bringing all of this back to my clients. It was like, first, my life got to radically change. And then I just saw my practice just profoundly shift and awakening and more freedom. And so, fast forward, I was writing my memoir for 5 years before I published it. And, I thought, oh, I'm going to be done with this in 6 months and move along. And it's like, that's not what happened. And then, I guess that came out in 2022. And another long story, probably too long, is that one of the agents that I was early introduced to when I was trying to shop my memoir, her name is Jan Baumer, and she was always so lovely and helpful. And I stayed in touch with her, even though she just kept saying, Ingrid, it's not for me or her list or her content. Like she just knew she probably couldn't sell it, but she was still like, keep going. Like she felt the power in it. And so I had reached out to her about something else not long, I don't know how long ago now, but anyway, in that conversation, she looped in her friend and colleague, Lauren Hall, and Lauren read my memoir and she said, Big Publishing wants a book on the fawn response, and we think you're the one to write it. And I was like, what do you mean mainstream wants a book on fawning? It was like my whole body just lit up with this wild electric yes. Like my whole life has led up to my being able to write this book. And I could not have written this book if I didn't spend the 5 years writing the memoir. And so, in contrast, the fawning book came out in 6 months. It was like ready. And I turned to my practice and asked 7 of my clients to participate in this project. So it's not just my story.
I love that.
A diverse set of where people come from and what it looked like and how they've healed. And I'm just blown away, right, at where it's all taken us because it's such a collective process. But that's a little bit, ha ha ha, about who I am and where I come from and what brought me here is part of me trying to figure it out. But the other part that I think is even more interesting is that the body wants to heal. And I think that it's more of these surprising kind of magical things that have happened that have returned me to myself in a way. And so I guess I'll just say one more thing, that even though fawning is like in a self-help category, I tried to work really hard not to offer like a performance of helpfulness. And I think a lot of self-help books tend to fall prey to that idea. Like, give them the breakdown, practical, bullet point kind of things. And I was just like, you know what? I read all those books before and I couldn't follow the steps. They weren't right for me and my life and my process. And so, although I do try to offer, like I said, a diversity of experiences, it's more grounded in lived experience so that hopefully when the reader reads it, their body gets to light up and go, oh, that resonates or that makes sense. And then they can also discard the stuff that doesn't touch them in that way so that they can do the very thing that we're trying to do, which is restore a sense of personal agency and autonomy. And I could never know as an author what this reader on the other side of the world needs to specifically do. Do you know what I'm saying? It's
I
like,
do.
how could I? And I'm not going to shame people and perpetuate that sort of dance that I think we even do in the mental health field of being like, well, I'm the expert and I have it all figured out. It's like, no, I have some good information that I'm hoping to share and a bit of like what it looks like, but I'm going to trust you and your body and your process to absorb what you're meant to and let go of what you're not.
So many things I want to say. I am such a fan of following the joy. Sometimes it's not joy. Sometimes it's just like, what the hell am I doing? Like,
Right. A calling, an urge, a nudge, right.
yes. And how you, because of, I think this is one of the great, I turned 50 this year too. It's like the
Mm.
best thing ever.
Yeah.
I feel like, hello, world, I'm here.
I'm here.
It's so powerful. And one of the things that's been nice about having some decades is that you look back and you're like, oh, that was a classroom. I thought the point was this thing, but that thing was actually leading me to the next thing. But I never would have got to that open door if I hadn't gone through that thing. And your process, it's just gave me chills, made me cry. It's and I hate using the word because it's so misused in many circles, but the word obedience, but it's obedience to our own selves at last, our own sovereignty.
I sort of love that. Yes, in this context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an obedience to what the next thing is you're supposed to do. There's light shining on this next step, take it. Feel like the universe, whatever. It's so rewarded. And we get to know why later. We don't need to worry about why at the time. Just do it. Well, actually, it's a beautiful saying from 12 step, do the next right thing.
Yes.
And that applies to our own personal journey and our calling in the world.
I'm struck by that word obedience. I want to pause there for a minute and actually why I think it's so important. Because it speaks to like, be so faithful to your own body and your own voice. And what happens in chronic fawning essentially is that my entire sense of safety resided outside of my own body. So that hypervigilance and the scanning the environment and do you give me permission? Do you validate me? It's all external. So when we are told like go and, build self-esteem when you don't even like have a sense of self, this notion of like obedience just to the next right thing or to the nudge or to the calling, this is what starts to build our internal sense of safety, maybe for the first time in our lives. It's turning that focus from 100% external, even if it's just initially like it was for me on the page. It was like, well, this is my time to sort of pay attention to what's coming. And I was just like a faithful transcriber. You know what I
Oh, I
mean?
love how you put that. Yes, exactly. I know exactly what you mean. It just comes out. And your job is to kind of like, okay, I'll edit this a little here and fluff this paragraph up here for readability, but it just pours out basically. It's so different from having to come up with something.
And I wanted to abandon it a million times and said that I would.
5 years. That's what
Yes.
really struck me. This is not like this moment in time I'm on a kick, so I'm gonna write for a month, now I'm moving on to the next thing. This wouldn't let you go.
It would not let me go. And my poor husband, he saw me go through it a million times where I was like, what am I doing? I'm making myself sick with this thing. And, it was in part because of that other thing you said, which I loved, is I didn't know even that that was the classroom. I thought that I was meant to reach a particular finish line in a particular time. And every time I didn't, I felt so much shame, but ultimately I was growing this bigger container than I was ever able to tolerate having before. It needed 5 years of stress.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't even know what the classroom's about. Your brain thinks it knows at a
Oh,
certain point,
100%. Yes.
but later your heart's like, also, it was about this.
Yes. Also, right, because both were true. I did know that it was probably meant to be a book, but I thought that I had it all figured out in like no time at all. And there was a lot of nuance that would have been left in the margins where it didn't belong. And in fact, it was all of those pieces that needed to be the main text, as it were, right? Like, and I couldn't have done that in such a short period of time. So, yes, I think obedience to our voice, our calling, our nudges, it's profound and it's going to look different for every single person.
I like to think of it as kind of the great holy rebellion. I am home in myself now, and I'm going to walk from that place. And there's like that goes against every last bit of the conditioning.
I love the way you're languaging things. It's like deepening my relationship to these things in my own body. It's so cool.
Would you give a quick explanation of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and then bring us into I have about 3 different questions.
Okay, I'll start with
Well,
that.
we'll start with the first one.
Yeah. So most of us have heard of fight, flight, or freeze. These are the trauma responses that we've long referenced. And they appear just as they sound, right? You fight back, you run away, or your body gets frozen like a deer in headlights. All of these present in a way that, as an observer, you might be like, oh, yeah, they don't want what's happening right there. It's a rebellion against your body, sort of rebelling against the very thing. But what we now know is that fawning is a relational trauma response that tends to happen when fight, flight, or freeze are either unavailable or would make things worse. And certainly, if you look at childhood trauma as one example, you think about fighting back. Well, we need our caregivers, right? For longer than any other species. They're 2 to 3 times our size. They hold all the power, all of that. Similarly, running away, where are you going to go? You're probably going to be brought right back to the scene of the crime. And freeze is very common with childhood trauma. But the other thing about ongoing relational trauma is you got to get up and get out of bed and go to school every day, right? You have to kind of like go along to get along in these environments. And children are hardwired. We can't necessarily make our caregivers all that bad because, again, we need them to survive. And so there's this innate thing that happens, which is it must be me. And it's this sense of empowerment in a way that's like, well, if I broke it, then maybe I can fix it. And all of this contributes to what we now know as this fourth response, which is fawning, which is where you're not running away or fighting against. We're actually leaning into the very relationships that are causing us harm. But it can look really different depending on the context. So it might look like appeasing, smiling and dancing and performing and flattering, flirting, propping people up, right? It's like, if you like me, then you won't hurt me maybe as bad, right?
Exactly. If you like me, I'll be slightly more safe. I'm not safe. I'm not going to be safe. It's not going to get safe.
That's right.
So, how do I live in it? And if I happen to have the innate qualities that would go with being able to be relational, then I can use those qualities. I always think of it as like it's not our qualities that are the problem. It's that they had to be used in order to help us survive. And so then when we're an adult, that's the only way we know how to use them. Keep the people pleased. Then I'll be safe.
That's exactly right. And you're making such an important point, which is that these assets that you genuinely have and own, they are not bad. But the fawn response can attach itself to anything that will be useful. And so for some people, that might be their physical appearance or their sexuality or their financial resources. It's like anything can be used to kind of like, ingratiate yourself, as it were. And so the other side of that equation is when someone is that you need, vital to your survival, is absent or abandoning you or inconsistent. And that turns on this sort of caretaking piece. It's like, oh my God, I need you and you're not there. So, how can I be more patient and compassionate and sort of endow you with resources you might not even have? I'm going to run circles around your pain to try to fix it. But both of these presentations and the million different ways that they can manifest, all of it robs us of staying wholly true to who we are, what our values are, and what we need. There's a level of self abandonment that goes along with all of these presentations, right? And again, it's because we have to. Fawning, just like the other trauma responses, is an unconscious reflex. It comes online in a nanosecond. The body decides in the moment, like, what's the thing that's going to keep me most safe? So it's nervous system driven.
The cognitive approaches just don't really change it.
It's not where it resides.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like speaking two different languages, literally. And then we wonder what's wrong with us. The other piece, I guess, is because we're talking about complex trauma, which is ongoing relational trauma, and these things have come online for most of us so young, it becomes this thing where we don't know where we end and where fawning begins. And part of my personal experience was I was like, why? It's not like I didn't know that my family was dysfunctional, right? It's not like I wasn't aware that I didn't want to be like that I wanted a different life. I was actively showing up for sort of like going back to school and getting sober and doing all of these things. So why then was I still stuck in this chronic presentation? Well, because fawning was 5 steps ahead of me, whether the environment was safe or not. It's like I'd been burned so many times that the fawn response is like this permanent sort of shield, even like acting as me before I could even get hurt or risk it.
It becomes part of our attachment, how we know to attach to the people that we love and care about, not just to the bad people. Quote, quote.
That's right. That's right. It was my blueprint for attachment. It was my only sense of real relational safety is what can I do for you? And so, of course, I'm bringing that now to every single relationship, but then still feeling like I'm not being seen. I'm not in reciprocal relationships, particularly in my romantic life for so long. It was like, why am I still dating the same person with a different face over and over and over? And I could not solve that riddle. And no matter what I accomplished, it also didn't take away this other feeling that like I knew that I was struggling. I knew I wasn't wholly available to myself, or I felt like a fraud. I felt like if you really knew me, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, this is why. I didn't really know me. No one else could really know me.
Yes.
That was
I
real.
cannot be home in myself and be safe in this world. I cannot be centered in myself and have relationships. And at a certain point, there isn't even a self to know about. It's only an intellectual concept. But if many people that I work with who are brilliant, often therapists, I think a lot of us end up in the healing professions because we're so damn good at it. Yeah, we are. It really is.
And we are.
Really are good at it. But we just need ourselves too. And when we say something as simple as, let's identify our basic needs, not even wants, not even dreams, just actual needs, there is a fear, almost a wistful longing, like, is that allowed? And a blankness. How do I figure this out? But meanwhile, the 10 people that person just came as, and I speak personally as well. I too very good at this. I'm not. But the 10 people that are closest to us, we could take a piece of paper and write down a whole list of all the needs that we have
All their
identified.
needs. I
From their
know.
micro twitch of their eyebrow wiggling, but we have no idea of our own basic needs.
That's right. We can tell what everyone else is experiencing and the level of their anxiety. Chronic fawners don't know that we are so anxious. We can tell, like you said, from the sound of the keys in the door, your level of regulation. But clients come into my office and they go, no, I'm not anxious. They are riddled with anxiety through this hypervigilance. So even tapping in and sort of noticing that for the first time, that, oh, this is what anxiety looks and feels like, is like, oh my word.
I thought this was normal.
I thought that this
was. It was our normal.
It was our normal.
Because it's never safe. And I love how you said that in the book. And it's so true, though. It's I can't have a self if I'm not safe. And I think that's why it develops the way it does. It actually makes a lot of sense. And it's not to be pathologized in that, which I love how you don't do that. It's the system has to create safety so that later we can get a sense of self when it's safe. But the problem is because we live in a world that doesn't understand these things, later comes and we have no idea, we don't have a sense of self, and neither does anyone else because many people don't actually have senses of selves for a variety of different reasons. So we look for this help and we look for it the way we're trained to look. Cognitive means there's 10 steps to solving my problem. And codependency and people pleasing are two terms that have been both incredibly helpful to people in the compassionate community who are finding themselves and also incredibly pathologizing depending on how they're used. Will you share, like, for example, when somebody says people pleasers are trying to manipulate people, that, ugh,
Yeah, I can't stand it.
it
And codependents are trying to control. Like those words to me, I just go, oh my God, you don't get it. You've never spent a day disempowered your whole damn life, and God bless you, but I'm not taking advice from you.
exactly. And I know, I always think, maybe there are some people who are using people pleasing to manipulate. So never say never, but that just adds more victim blaming to what's already hard enough.
I agree that both of these sort of paradigms, if you talk about it either as people pleasing or codependency or how they overlap, they've been speaking to something that's real. It was like our best language at the time, but neither were trauma informed or systems informed. So both of these things place what we sort of refer to as the deficits in an individual as though they originated out of thin air and it's a you problem and come on already, just fix it, change it, make it better. Codependency in particular came about as a counterpoint to addiction, which was framed at the time only in this disease model. And so codependency comes along. And again, Melody Beattie, it was so interesting. I went back to Codependent No More as I was writing Fawning. And I was like, okay, maybe, I've sort of been giving it a bad rap, but maybe there's like more there for me now. Let me go and really reflect and see how she talked about this thing. And in a lot of ways, I think she was doing with codependency what I'm trying to do with fawning now, which is like, this is new on the scene. Let's try to cobble it all together and start to coalesce a thing. But in my experience, going back and reading it, I was like, oh, how she talks about codependency here. Boy, do I relate to that. And that feels really like resonant. And then she goes, so let me boil this all down into what like the essence of codependency is. And I'm not going to quote it, but I did quote it in the book Fawning. But it was basically like a need to control. And I was like, no, or addicted to control or something along those lines, where we let other people sort of impact us in this way. And I was like, let other people, it's like we're relational beings. We don't live in isolation. So she took away in her boiled down version both anything that reflected on the system itself. And again, this was pre sort of trauma informed language. So she couldn't have brought that in, but it was devoid of all of that. So what you and I are so fond of like pointing to in all of this, no matter what language you're using, is that the fawn response is not dysfunctional. It was a response to a dysfunctional or unsafe environment. And in that way, it is a genius adaptation, necessary adaptation that worked. And so all of that sort of codependency and people pleasing, it never honored the origins of the thing. So if you're not honoring the origins, that was the piece that basically said, I can't see myself here. I wasn't enabling my parents' alcoholic drinking when I was a child. I wasn't trying to control them. Quite frankly, I wasn't trying to please them either. I wanted safety. That was my intention.
Basic psychological needs required for a healthy development of a child.
That's right. And so, I actually haven't had any blowback from the codependency community.
Sometimes I think it's kind of like with the beautiful classroom of you writing the memoir that was beautiful in and of itself, but ended up being a path that led you to something else. I sometimes, when I think about humans in the macro, I think for us in the Western world, I can look back and really I can honor 12 step coming out and saying there's got to be a different way to look at addiction. We
Totally.
know more now, but what an incredible program.
Right.
It's still available free anywhere. You can go to a meeting right now, like immediately.
Free
What is that?
community. Yeah, so much
Yes.
great
And
stuff
then
there.
somebody coming out of there and saying, wait, the partners of folks need help too in that at that time, primarily wives. What about them? Like making it up from scratch, really, because there was no information for that. And so with the information that was available in the macro at the time, it was the best thing we got. I mean, I know this is coming from a lot of sources, but I love like internal family systems, amazing IFS, with Richard Schwartz or EMDR, amazing, where you can actually see there's a root to it. There's a root to it. And it made sense. The trauma response made sense,
Yeah.
but it's
Yes.
not the truth. And systems thinking.
And this conversation isn't the end of the conversation. I'm so aware of that to the point where even as I was selling this book, Fawning, it's like from a marketing perspective, they want to be like, you're the expert on fawning. And I'm like, no, I'm not. Like, I'm going to know a lot more even after I write this book. But I never want to position myself as like the one who has it all figured out because I want to just be a part of a conversation that continues to evolve. This is my contribution to that ongoing conversation. That feels like the right position.
To me, that just makes you such a beautiful, wise expert, though, because isn't that the truth? The more we know, the more we realize we don't know, and the more there is to know.
Yeah.
I've thought that a lot about the Becoming Boundaried program. I've thought in 30 years, because you know how they want us, the business gurus are like, tell you how to present things. And I thought, in 30 years, my goal is that this program is absolutely obsolete because this is our birthright and we should all have it, but we don't. So we got to get it. But if I do my job right, there is no program in 30 years because it's
Oh,
not a part of how we live.
God, isn't that the goal? That's right. That's so beautiful. What a great, vision to hold that all of this becomes obsolete.
Then we honor the people who came before, but also we don't pretend like this is now written in stone. Codependent no more is the only way to think about it. No, it's the best way to think about it at the time. Thank you so much, Melody Beatty. Okay, Ingrid,
Yeah.
you're bringing in and helping usher in a paradigm that the world is now ready for.
I think so. That's what feels exciting about it. First of all, that's why when my now two agents, they were like basically saying mainstream wants this information. I was like, it was so shocking because even Pete Walker's work, it was like very much like this cult underground following of like, complex PTSD that to this day, we don't have
CPTSD.
diagnosis
Exactly.
in the United
CPTSD.
States,
Yep.
right? So we're still in this weird, funky sort of like, is it real? I don't know. And but basically, even as a clinical psychologist, I just had to kind of cut through and say, I'm not interested in debating if this is real or not. My body's going to tell you that it is. My clients' bodies are going to tell you that it is. And like most things, right, even as we talk about Melody Beatty sort of cultivating, honing in on the essence of the thing at the time, it's all born of lived experience. It's not some cognitive thing that you pull out of thin air. It's like, what is this thing? Let's kind of unpack it and go into the nooks and crannies. And that is valid. That is evidence. That is research. It matters.
Life-changing.
Yeah.
Hey, my friends. I firmly believe that the common struggles we compassionate people face are often doorways, pointing us to the hidden beliefs that so many times keep us stuck. So if overgiving or people-pleasing or guilt around boundaries has been holding you back, I created something to help. It's called the Boundaries Breakthrough Mini Course, and right now, it's totally free. So if you feel the tug to grow in your boundaries journey, this is for you. You can start today at boundary.com/breakthrough. And if you're interested in coming to work with me more closely, The mini course is a wonderful way to dip your toe in the water, get some real help, and if you want to continue with me after that, then cool. I would love that. Boundary.com/breakthrough. It's really good stuff. Have fun. I think that we who fell into fawning, adapted fawning, found fawning as a means of surviving and trying to thrive as best as we could, we actually embodied that safety over self. It's not till the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s that we even become aware of it because it's working in our
That's right.
20s and sometimes in our 30s. We get awards, you get raises, pats on the head, there's gold stars. Everybody likes, in a sense, if you really get good at fawning,
Yeah.
people like it because you perform really well for them.
Meg Josephson, her book came out shortly before mine. It's called Are You Mad at Me? She's a clinician.
I've heard about that.
And it's a book about the fawn response, right? So as big publishing was like, we want this, a couple of us sort of stepped in. I also have yet to read her book because I've been so steeped in my launch, but I'm going to. I think my sense is a part of what she's also bringing is that she's younger. She wrote the book in her late 20s. And so she's seeing how it's manifesting for people earlier in their life and some of those tricky spots and how they maybe get hooked in before the decades. And I kind of felt the sense of that even as I first heard about her book and was even in the writing of mine. I was like, well, first of all, as many voices as we can have on the topic, the better. And that is a piece of, I think, what I'm bringing to mine is what it looks like to have lived in this for so long and the systems that have supported it, expected it, all of those things. And so, yeah, there's this kind of fuller picture as we're all ready for it that's coming more available to us now. And that's exciting towards that larger goal of may all of this be obsolete one day.
I love how when this work comes from the heart, there's no competition because it's not about that. And we're taken care of along the way. You give what you're supposed to give. You do what's in you to do. And
That's right.
it's a different way than the other person. And they're doing what they're supposed to do. And you know what? You actually all help each other. The world is changing. It is time. Stuff is shifting. It is radical. Your book's here for a reason. You're doing what you're doing for a reason. Our basic needs are going to be taken care of when we're doing what we're here to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's two more things I would love to hear from you. And one I think might be really practical just for listeners. You wrote a book actually on spiritual bypassing or that topic. By the way, everybody, if you want to check Ingrid's work out, you'll find a book on that there. I feel like toxic positivity and spiritual bypassing both are incredibly, it's like, what are those plants that eat bugs? It's like there are honeydew plant. They're in very, if you fall into codependency, fawning, I have to not be myself in order to stay safe. And the best way I do that is by making everybody happy and doing what you want. I feel like that's kind of like the honeydew scent to us. That is a trap that is incredibly easy.
Oh, it's so true. And for everybody else. It's also the honeydew for those that don't want to look at their shit or take any responsibility and want to dump it all on your lap,
True,
right?
true.
They're like, just go and forgive and forget and all of that.
Okay, that is so true. That's like crack for the abuser to give to keep the other person hooked.
Yes,
So
100%.
it is, you're
Yeah.
right. There's a wide audience for those things. Would you explain and feel free to lean into spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity
Yeah.
or both. Explain what that is for our listeners and why you don't want it. Why
Yeah. So when I say that my agent said, they want a book on fawning, and I felt filled with this feeling that my whole life has led up to being able to do this, I include that my dissertation for my PhD was 100% on this concept of spiritual bypassing. It was like, there's the 5 years of the memoir, but there's the 5 years of the dissertation research and writing about this concept that when I heard about it in grad school, I talk about it like an arrow was pulled back in slow motion and just shot towards my heart. And I was like, what are you talking about? I could use my spiritual practice as a way to avoid my wounding. It was like, what on earth? And so John Wellwood is the psychotherapist who coined spiritual bypassing in the 70s. And he was a meditation practitioner, and he saw a lot of Westerners in particular sort of turning to the practice like, well, why aren't I just happy and free all the time? And he's like, well, because that ain't the point. You know what I mean? Like, but we want it to be the point. We love this idea that if I pray hard enough and meditate long enough and find the right green juice or therapist, that like all that ails me, I can override it, essentially, override this human conditioning. And it's even in the hierarchy of the thing, right? It's like,
I was taught it. I mean, by well-intentioned people,
yes,
and I was in a highly conservative Christian group, and it was just say the Bible verses, do the prayers, like,
that's right.
be happy. That means you're spiritually healthy. And if you're not happy, you're not spiritually healthy.
So, what a trap that is, right? Because to be a whole person means you're not happy all the time. And spirituality is wonderful. I still avail myself of many sort of spiritual tools, but they are not a panacea. I liken it to what we say in trauma therapy, which is that trauma healing is a bottom up modality. And I was using spirituality as this top down sort of like just kind of smother and like get rid of and, everything that ails me. And the truth is that the reality is like somewhere in the middle in this messy kind of flexible space. And I came from at that point, I don't know how long I was sober, but I basically grew up in AA, right? I have 30 years sobriety now. And it was really compelling, even as someone recovering from addiction, to be like, oh, okay, I get it. That can't be my solution anymore. But if I get on my knees or I pray in a certain way or I find a higher power of my understanding that can change day in, day out, it was like I wanted it to quell my dysregulation. Of course, I didn't use that word at the time, to the same degree that the drugs or alcohol did.
Oh, it's so
Yeah,
true. It's when it's used to make it go away, which is actually stuffing it down.
right. So when it's used as a container for all of it, then that's different. But that was not my orientation. How could it be?
Well, if we can't identify our needs, if we're not allowed to have feelings and we can't identify needs, here's where like fawning really ties in because I don't even know what my feelings are because I'm too busy totally zeroed in on your feelings and making you happy. So I
And getting
don't
rid of
even,
mine through spiritual
yes,
practice and also we'll speak a little detoxification.
it helps me fawn better. It helps me keep you happier if I can just get rid of mine. So
So I first became obsessed with that idea. And I felt like I also knew I wasn't trying to spiritually bypass, right? I was earnestly trying to do the thing that I was being taught. That's why it felt like the slow motion arrow. I was like, I just didn't know. I didn't know. And so I thought, how many other people don't know? And maybe there's this pivot. And I will say, some people have picked up that book now. Again, it's from research from '07, '08. There's dated language in there. People are sending me mean emails because I talk about someone as an addict, right? Or whatever. It's like, well, that's what we were doing at the time. So take what you like and leave the rest. Anyway, so when I was writing Fawning and I knew that I needed at least one chapter about why fawning flourishes. What are the systems? What are the things that perpetuate this thing that's not just about me? So I talked about things like, patriarchy and racism and classism and all these things. But I thought, but wait, there's more. And of course, spiritual bypass came back to me. I was like, yes, we're told, like, Ingrid, if you could just forgive, right? And it's like, come on, if that worked, I would not have been in the turmoil, like, because I earnestly tried to do all of those things. And it's not, first of all, I don't believe that forgiveness is necessary in a trauma healing, the experience of healing your trauma. But if it does happen, it's at the end of a much very different and longer, more embodied process. And so to kind of dangle that as the first thing is just wrong.
I knew that, and then it was when I was trained in EMDR and IFS that and I know you are too, that's when I really saw it over and over and over again with the most incredible clients. if forgiveness was the right thing, it came at the end after
That's
all the
right.
feelings were felt, and it came spontaneously and organically, and we never had a session where now we're gonna work on
Now we're going to
forgiveness.
practice
It was
forgiveness.
off the table, and
That's right.
it came and it happened because everything got owned, honored, and cleared. All the anger, all the rage, all the snotty tears, all of
Yes.
it.
Yes.
It's
Yes. Yes.
ugly first before it's pretty. It's what we've been told is ugly anyways. I think trauma's beautiful too. Healing is beautiful, but
But
anyway,
painful and messy,
it's
and
hard. It's
it's
not
hard
pretty.
for sure. Yes. So that's the spiritual bypass piece. And then you just apply all of that same with the toxic positivity, right? It's like as though we can skillfully, sort of with a scalpel, like carve out all the bits that don't look so good or feel so good or aren't as palatable. That's not a whole life either. I mean, that's self abandonment by design. It's like, oh, okay, I'm just not allowed to have my limbs because they're not happy, joyous, and free.
It's one of my biggest critiques about how, and probably why I got into creative arts therapies and more so about how, and I know this is not true. I'm going to get in trouble. Someone's going to write me a mean email for this, but when CBT is applied in a very by many people, it actually to me always feels a lot like toxic positivity because we're going to get positive thoughts instead of these negative thoughts. And here's how to get the negative thoughts to go away, which actually, okay, so nobody get too mad. That can be really helpful when applied to the correct problem. It's the right solution for the right problem. But when it's applied to CPTSD, when you have chronic complex trauma, when the body is completely dysregulated, when the body is in agony and pain, and then we solve that problem by helping you think differently about it doesn't work. And then the person walks away feeling like they're a failure
Yes.
or, not trying hard enough when it's not.
Listen, I include that in the myriad of things I've tried over the years. I mean, I had the affirmations taped to my bathroom mirror. I had what I'm orienting towards in terms of like, I'm not going to think about that stuff. I'm going to think about the good stuff. I'm going to try. And again, it just didn't work. And now we know why. We have all of this trauma informed information to show us, like, okay, now we know why. So, but I think that these things are often weaponized against us. And that's the other reason I think it's important to name them outright in terms of the toxic positivity or spiritual bypass is that, honestly, I published on my Substack yesterday 2 big articles that have come out that included my book. One was in the New York Times and it was like, is today's self-help teaching everyone to be a jerk? And another one was in The Guardian and they called it selfish self-help. And they missed the point in both of these pieces and included me with like some other major bestsellers, which I'm like, well, I'm happy to be in that company. But you're missing the point, which is what I wrote on my Substack, which is like calling us now being a jerk or selfish is you're gaslighting us again. You're not looking at the system's perspective. You're not looking at the nervous system perspective, which is what the whole book is about. So we have to be aware of that this is being weaponized and coming for us yet again.
And it will continue to be so.
And it will continue. Here I've written the whole book, and now to talk about the book, they're using the same old tired language to say, well, isn't it really just you doing it wrong? And I'm like, oh.
When you come at this world from a lens of being a compassionate person and having a sense of empathy and otherness and other-centeredness or generosity or whatever type of traits one got that lean in that direction, there's a way of orienting with life that is very different from somebody who came in with a higher sense of selfishness or grandiosity, things that lean towards potentially being grandiose. Because I find that all the time with boundaries, people who lean grandiose and lean towards being a taker rather than the giver say boundaries just make you more selfish. And actually, honestly, they need to be more other-centered in order
That's
to
right.
balance out. But for passionate people, we have generosity in spades often, and we're overgiving to the point of burnout. And then we actually can't give anymore because we're so depleted. So boundaries end up being, in a really funny way, they can look selfish from the outside at first, but it's actually to find ourselves helps us give more. So the final production, the produce from becoming boundary to the compassionate person is actually giving the world much more than we could have given without them.
Yes, because it's your whole self and it's authentic, and someone can engage with that more directly with their whole self. And yes, I think it's the other reason why there's not a panacea or a one size fits all. Because to your point, some of us never had a self to begin with. We're building it for the first time. So to call me selfish while I'm just building some selfhood, even though it does look like pushing back, it's missing the point. And I have another sort of an expansion of that critique, even in my own experience of 12-step work that originated out of 99 men coming together that were likely engaged in more of a fight response, which is sort of what you're talking about. They did need to become more other centered. Telling them to constantly be of service and get out of themselves and look at their part in things was a very useful intervention. But then to take somebody like me, a woman with childhood trauma, to tell me to constantly get out of myself and look at my part in things, it kept me sober and I'm grateful, but it also kept me stuck in some of my healing from complex trauma. So we have to look at the bigger picture of all of these things. There is no one size fits all. It's the problem of meme culture, even. It's like this one sentence or sentiment isn't going to apply to everyone. And that doesn't mean you have to criticize the person who put it out by saying, well, that's not true 100% of the time. And it's not the point of what we're trying to do anyway, right? It's like, where's the bigger conversation? Where's the nuance? And it's why I end the book even saying this is a paradigm shift. It's moving out of this binary of one or the other, like healed or broken and right or wrong. It's all of it is somewhere in this messy middle where there is some joy and there is some pain, because that's what a real life actually looks like. What most of us have been longing for is a sense of reality, not another performance or a curated version of what we think a self is supposed to be. It makes me so mad.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was actually going to say that, but more in terms of the spiritual community, that this idea, and I do work with men, I know you do too, who have experienced this as well, but it tends to be more experienced by women who have been acculturated, especially I think 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, super acculturated to be the one who gives. The woman's the one who submits. The man's the one who gets what they want. The woman accommodates the man getting what he wants. Has been a norm in much of the culture and Western culture. And so coming out of that, when I think about a lot of spirituality and religious practices who have been the leaders, and men speaking appropriately to their own experience and saying, in order to become a more spiritual person or a more evolved person, I need to give more. I need to be more other-centered. So they're teaching, and their teaching's great. It's absolutely fine. But you come into that as a woman who's already, or anybody who's a combative person who's fawning, or already been told that you don't really have a sense of self to begin with.
Yeah. But we need to name a little bit all the other marginalized people in there, right? Because
Absolutely.
it's also, the people of color, the
LGBTQ,
neurodivergent, and LGBT.
BIPOC.
Thank you. Yeah.
Not allowed to exist, not allowed to even be in the system at all.
Yeah.
Not allowed to show up, not allowed to use the bathroom. The book Cast, oh my gosh, not in the right cast.
Yep.
But this idea that you need to sacrifice yourself, it's already been being done.
That's right.
Idea
Out of the gate.
to get over yourself. What self? I don't even have one. So people engaging in trying to self-evolve, trying to grow in their spirituality, trying to do these things. And for people like us, our biggest move forward is first in finding home base on ourselves, coming home to our bodies and our beings.
Yeah.
I know you know this is what you're doing. Would you actually, I would love some personal advice from you if you got it.
Do it. We'll
You're
see.
ahead of me on this path. Every step of the way that when I know something's in me that I'm supposed to do, my protocol has been first be terrified about it, wonder why I'm terrified, look down deep and find all of these programming upon programming that says stay small, stay quiet, don't get out there on a bigger stage, don't do it. Do you know what they will do to you? And there's truth in it, I think, and there's truth in epigenetics of trauma, not just from this.
Yep.
So I have this book coming out at the end of February that I'm so excited about. It's so on my heart, but it is, my publisher was just like, she just got the printer's copy and she's like, "Molly, this is a brave book. Like, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
ruffle some feathers." And I'm like, "I am," but my brain's like, "No, we're not. We're not ready. I don't want this." But all of the rest of me is like, "This is what I'm here to do. This is the next step. I'm so excited about this." But you have been experiencing this as your book has gone boom. And I think it's just starting, Ingrid. Beautiful work.
Mm.
But when we were supposed to meet, we had to cancel because you were on a bigger podcast. It was amazing. It was so cool. And I was cheering for you. And then I saw in the comment section you're getting shit for it.
Yeah.
And I know that's not the only place. The bigger things get, the more people like to come in and peck and pick and critique.
Yeah. You know what's so funny? Just as a little example of that, my self-published memoir kind of went out to like my community of folks that have a similar experience, and they shared it with their folks who have a similar experience. And so even if you go to the reviews on Amazon for my memoir, you can tell that they're very much of people in a similar vein of experience, right? The minute you go mainstream, you're casting wide. And so already you can just tell, and you see this on the comments and videos too. I was talking to someone the other day in totally different business, but she said, "Oh my God, all we wanted was for one of our videos to go viral. And then it went viral and we were like, we never want to go viral again because the bots come out and the trolls come out and the all this shit comes out, right?" So I am definitely feeling some of that. But I think for our message, what's interesting, and I just have to keep noticing this, is I'm going to see if I can articulate the feeling that just went whoop in my heart.
I'm here for it. Heart's wide open.
This is interesting to be able to say and own. I've always known from the minute that the memoir came that it was for other people. But the thing that allowed me to do that as powerfully as I think it was able to do was when I owned that it's okay also if it is just for me, because I matter and my healing matters and my process matters. And I'm having a very similar experience with this book where ultimately, it doesn't belong to me anymore. I felt it almost the minute that it was done. I was like, okay, I did it, but now it belongs to the reader wherever they are, and it's going to do whatever it's meant to do in other people's lives. It's truly like having a child in a way. It's like you have your own path and purpose. I can't dictate it. I don't know where it's going to go. It also isn't a marker of how good of a parent I am or whatever, writer or whatever. So then there's a bit of separation that happens for me when the thing is done and it goes out, which is a bit of a relief. But also, I think the point that like washed over me was it's okay if I do something even that looks professional or for other people, if I'm making that choice because it's the right choice for me. My writing a book for public consumption does not mean that my life remains for public consumption, that it remains mine. And I have to continue to ground down and trust, be obedient to what feels like the right next step for me for whatever reason, that I don't have to explain to anyone. I don't owe anyone a fucking behind the scenes. I share so much of myself, but I share what I feel ready and what I want to. No one else is entitled to any more. And there is kind of like this continuation, this radical continuation of this same work of, first of all, establishing a container and then growing it and growing it and growing it. And the way that I am being enabled to grow it is through more of the friction, is through more of the pushback. It's like it's solidifying more and more what I know to be true about me. And that feeling that we talk about even with boundaries work, it's like, it's okay if you don't give me permission or if you misunderstand it or if you want to call me selfish. Go ahead because I finally know who I am. So it becomes a continuation of these same themes, even if it is sort of up on the big screen, as it were. My experience of it is still just as deeply personal, and I just have to keep coming back to me and coming back to me, but also going, Do I want to go and read all the reviews? Maybe that's not for me, which feels miraculous because I'm an obsessive person and I like to know all of the things as though it's going to keep me safe, but I'm realizing it's not keeping me safe. It actually doesn't feel good. You know, it does feel good. God, I'm just so emotional with you today. What feels good are these profound emails that I'm getting from people that's not for public consumption either. They're just like pouring their heart out and going, this is what I'm getting from this work. And I know that that was my greatest hope and intention, is that it would land that way. So to have them take the time to share with me that it is and it does, it's like, that's all I need. The rest of it, go do what you're meant to do. Book, ruffle some feathers, make some other people mad. Other people are going to hate it. I go, okay, guess what? It's been my perfect path.
Oh my goodness. It's that holy rebellion again.
Yes.
Actually, and really truly practicing what you preach.
Uh, Allowing me to be able to practice it, quite frankly, right? Because what am I practicing if I'm sort of like holed up in my little safety bubble and going, okay, it's like, it's allowing me to practice what I preach and actually just, we only learn experientially. It's not theoretical. So it's giving me a chance to allow some of these things in a new way from this place in my life, to see what it feels like as I'm metabolizing it in this new way. And as much as some of this shit is painful, I'm not going to lie, it's not too much later that I get to go, oh my God, but look how it's reflecting how far I've come. That would have annihilated me. I would have been flooded with shame and certain that I had done something wrong, right?
Basically prepared for this moment, which is so cool. The classroom that you're in, the obedience that you have, next step, next step, next step, next step. Why is it so hard? I hate it. I want to quit. I'm not
Yes.
quitting. I'm going to keep going.
I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. It's interesting because I noticed that same thing when she said that, and we kind of laughed, and I'm like, I really don't want to. The intention is never to piss anybody off or ruffle feathers. I don't want to do.
No.
You know what? It happened. So be it. So be it.
Yes. And I don't know about with you, but I had the same things when my publisher was reading, or the proposal that went around. Every single meeting, they said, oh my God, this is so brave. I didn't feel it as I'm going to be brave. It's not even the point. It was like, if you really want me to write about this thing, this is the only way that I can do it that feels true and real. So it's not on the table whether I want to be that brave or not. It's like, if I'm doing it and it's coming through this body, this is how I teach. I teach through story. I teach through lived experience. I can't now extract that out. That would be the boring thing that I told you I'm not willing to write.
There's already enough of that. Beautiful people have
Bit done.
Yep, they've cognitived everything out, and thank goodness they did. I'm so glad that's there.
That's
Enough
true.
of that. We have enough
Yeah.
of it.
Yeah. So I'm excited for your path. I suspect it will feel quite similar in that way, where it lets you, carve out more and more. Oh, this is who I am, and this is what I believe, and this is how I reconnect to self and help other people, and know that for me anyway, I'm not here to help everyone.
Yes, you're not.
Oh my
My
God.
goodness, by being who you are, the people that you do help.
Right.
It's like a clear song instead of all muddled, trying to wave around and be many types of music.
Yes.
Who you are.
That's right.
So resonates because of that with the right
Yeah.
people.
And I know that your work is so unique and specific and personal to you that it will be that similar sort of ping.
So
Right?
it was a book given to me. I can't even hardly take credit for it other than just doing it,
Wow.
doing what I was given. I'm so excited. Well, Ingrid, would you tell folks how to find you, your social media, your website, where to get your book?
Everything is through my website, which is just my name, ingridclayton.com. And I'm most active on Instagram and Substack, and I kind of repost some things to Facebook if you're on there too, or I think even TikTok, but I'm not really like there. I am not taking on clients. I like to say that because I hate having to tell people that I'm not taking clients after they got so brave to reach out. But if you like what you hear and you want more help, I hope you will look for support that you do deserve. And I tend to say, seek out a trauma therapist specifically. That means they have trauma training. They're not just trauma informed. There's lots of different modalities, but they should be able to tell you what they are. And what else? The book is called Fawning, Why the Need to Please Makes Us Lose Ourselves and How to Find Our Way Back. And it should basically be everywhere now. It's already been, we've sold the translation rights for, I think, over 16 languages and territories. That will come soon. But in terms of the English version in the UK and Canada and US, and it's available hopefully wherever books are sold. People are sending me the list of where they are in the queue on their local library of waiting to get it. And that makes me super, super happy. So, yeah.
Thank you for being you.
Oh, likewise. This conversation was so divine. It was truly divine. And I feel changed by it. And I can't wait to celebrate and support your book, baby. And am grateful for everything you put into the world. It's been so helpful for me over the years.
Oh, my heart feels so full.
Me too.
So to the listeners, all of this stuff will be in ways you can get a hold of Ingrid and get her book. Will be in the show notes and link to her website and all that good stuff. So Ingrid, thank you so much.
Thanks, Molly.
My compassionate friend, I am so glad you're with us. We are the compassionate revolution. We are the change the world needs, and we're becoming it. If you loved this episode, please share it with a friend or give this podcast a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it so much. And if you'd like to get practical and work with me more closely on boundaries, you can come visit me at boundaried.com. That's boundaried with a D.com for amazing resources. Because this is how we do it. One action at a time. We are moving into our power. And I'm so proud to be in this movement with you.